You'd be surprised how many men walk around carrying a secret they'll never admit to, not to their friends, not to their partners, and sometimes not even fully to themselves. It's the fantasy of being dominated, that's right. The man who's in control at work, who makes decisions all day, who's expected to have the answers, he secretly wants to hand over the reins when the bedroom door closes. It's not because he's weak or confused or lacking confidence. It's because in that moment, giving up control is the ultimate release. And for many men, that kind of surrender is one of the most powerful turn-ons they'll never openly talk about. Now, I know what you're thinking. He doesn't seem like the type, but that's exactly the point. It's not always the shy, submissive guy who wants to be dominated. It's often the confident, high-achieving man who's constantly responsible for everything and everyone around him. The one who's tired of steering the ship every second of the day. For him, the idea of someone else taking charge, giving commands, setting the pace, it's not just erotic, it's therapeutic. It's a way to mentally and emotionally let go, to step out of the role he's been stuck in and experience intimacy from a completely different angle. But here's the thing, he won't ask for it. He won't say, "I want you to tie me up," or "tell me what to do tonight." Not because he doesn't want it, but because he doesn't feel safe enough to reveal that side of himself. He's worried you'll see him differently, think less of him, or feel awkward. Maybe he's had experiences where his vulnerability wasn't met with understanding or curiosity. Maybe he's never even explored it himself enough to know how to talk about it. So instead, he keeps the fantasy locked away, hidden, untouched, and that's a shame, because when two people can create a space safe enough to explore things like this, it doesn't weaken the connection, it strengthens it. What domination looks like doesn't need to be extreme. You don't have to dress in leather or bark orders like you're in a movie. It can be as simple as pushing him down onto the bed and saying, "Don't move until I tell you." It can be blindfolding him and letting him feel the anticipation build with every second he doesn't know what you'll do next. It's about you being bold, stepping into a role he secretly craves you to play. It's about you owning your own confidence and letting him rest in the feeling that, for once, he's not the one who has to lead. What men really want in these moments isn't just the physical experience. It's emotional permission. Permission to be vulnerable, to let go of pressure, to feel like he's allowed to want something outside the expected. And when you, without judgment, show up as someone willing to meet him there confidently, playfully, lovingly, you'll see a side of him that very few people ever get to see. That kind of trust is magnetic, that kind of connection is rare. So if he seems curious but hesitant, read between the lines. Invite him to let go, surprise him, because sometimes the most dominant thing you can do in the bedroom is give him the freedom to surrender. And when that happens, it won't just be a kink fulfilled. It will be a moment that brings you closer in ways you didn't even expect. There's something about stepping into a different role, even for just one night, that ignites a fire most people don't know how to put into words. For men, role-playing taps into a deep, imaginative part of their desire that often goes unexplored, not because the interest isn't there, but because expressing it out loud can feel awkward, even a little embarrassing. The truth is, many men secretly fantasize about being in a scenario that removes them from their everyday identity. It's not just about pretending. It's about experiencing intimacy through a different lens, one that feels dangerous, exciting, and outside the predictable rhythms of normal life. He might not ever say it directly, but that fantasy of you being the strict boss who calls him into her office for disciplinary reasons, or the seductive stranger he meets at a bar and barely knows, lives rent, free in his mind, These ideas aren't childish games, they're powerful escapes. In real life, he may be dealing with responsibilities, pressure, and the constant need to perform. But when you both step into a role, play, it becomes a safe space to suspend reality, to let instinct take over, to feel something new. What's really fascinating about role-playing is that it isn't always about dominance or submission. Sometimes it's about status, mystery, or even emotional tension. Think about how many movies or stories center around two characters who shouldn't be together but are drawn to each other anyway. That tension is what fuels the fantasy, and for him, playing out that forbidden dynamic can be intoxicating. He gets to be both himself and not himself at the same time. And you, well, you become a woman who doesn't just understand fantasy, but knows how to bring it to life. The reason he might not bring this up to you is because it requires vulnerability. Admitting that he wants to pretend to be someone else or see you in a totally different light could feel like he's risking judgment or rejection. He doesn't want you to laugh, to feel weird about it, or worse, think something's wrong with him. So instead, he keeps those thoughts to himself, maybe hoping you'll make the first move or give a hint that you're open to something playful and imaginative. If you do, you'd be surprised how quickly he's willing to lean in. And here's the secret: role-playing isn't about being a great actor. It's not about memorizing lines or being theatrical. It's about stepping into an energy. When you lower your voice, give him a look you've never given before, or say something with intention that catches him off guard, you're already halfway there. You don't need a costume or a script, just a willingness to shift the mood and say, "Tonight, let's not be us, let's be someone else." That kind of playful creativity builds intimacy in ways most people overlook. It creates a sense of surprise, of mystery, of possibility. It reminds him that your connection can keep evolving, that it isn't limited to routine or repetition. And most importantly, it shows him that you're not afraid to explore with him, not because you're trying to perform, but because you're curious, open, and fearless. So next time he seems distant, or maybe a little too stuck in his head, consider giving him a fantasy he didn't have to ask for. Step into a role, change the story, and watch how quickly his defenses melt away. Because when a man feels safe enough to play, to imagine, to explore, he also feels safe enough to go deeper with you, not just physically, but emotionally. That's where the real magic happens. There's something undeniably primal about the idea of surrendering one sense to heighten another. For a lot of men, the thought of being blindfolded, restrained, or even lightly spanked isn't about pain or punishment. It's about anticipation, sensation, and trust. These small acts of light BDSM, yes, the kind you've probably seen hinted at in movies or whispered about in conversation, are far more appealing to men than they'll ever openly admit. Not because they're trying to hide some secret kink, but because wanting these things challenges how they think they're supposed to be seen, strong, in control, and unshakably stoic. Yet behind that exterior often lives a deep craving for something completely different. Blindfolds, for example, create a shift in energy that's hard to explain until you've experienced it. The moment a man loses his ability to see, everything else becomes more intense. Your breath on his neck, the sound of your voice, the soft scrape of nails down his skin. Without sight, he has no choice but to focus on what he feels. That vulnerability, surprisingly, doesn't make him feel weak. It actually heightens his arousal. It puts him in a state of surrender that's deeply erotic because it forces him out of his head and into his body. And most men don't even realize how badly they need that escape from overthinking until it happens. Restraints, whether it's silk ties, cuffs, or simply holding his wrists above his head, play with a similar dynamic. They take away control in the best way, and it's not just about the restraint itself, it's about who's doing the restraining. When you take control in that moment, you're not just giving him physical stimulation, you're also giving him permission to stop performing. You're saying, you don't have to do anything right now except feel, and that permission is powerful. It's healing. It turns intimacy into something more layered, more playful, and paradoxically, more freeing. Now, when it comes to spanking, yes, even that, don't be so quick to dismiss it as something only a few people enjoy. Light spanking, when done with awareness and mutual excitement, is far less about pain and far more about sensation. The sound, the surprise, the rush of blood under the skin, it activates something instinctive, almost animalistic. For a man who usually carries himself with controlled strength, that small burst of sharp pleasure is both thrilling and grounding. It snaps him into the moment in a way most things don't, but again, he probably won't ask for this. Not because he doesn't want it, but because there's no space in most conversations for him to say, "Hey, what if you tied me up tonight?" He fears being misunderstood, laughed at, or rejected. And if he does hint at it, it'll likely be subtle, a joke, a side comment, or a what-if moment. That's why it's often up to you to create the atmosphere where he feels safe enough to explore. You don't have to go over the top. It starts with intention, a whispered, "Tonight I want to try something," said with confidence and curiosity. A blindfold pulled gently over his eyes, hands guided where you want them. It's about crafting an experience that says, "You're safe here, you can let go." And when he realizes he doesn't have to be in charge, that he can trust you to lead without judgment, he opens up in more ways than just the physical. You'll notice his body relax in new ways, his responses become more raw, his connection with you deepen. Because when a man allows himself to be fully present in sensation, not thinking, not planning, just feeling, he steps into a version of himself he rarely gets to experience. And that's when sex becomes more than just sex. It becomes unforgettable. There's a particular kind of thrill that lives in the space between what's allowed and what's risky. And for many men, that thrill comes alive in the idea of public teasing. Not full-on exhibitionism, but the subtle, delicious game of being turned on in a place where no one else knows what's happening. It's the kind of thing he won't openly bring up, partly because he doesn't want to sound inappropriate or out of line, but also because it's such a delicate line between sexy and scandalous. Still, the idea of you teasing him under the table, whispering something filthy in his ear at dinner, or brushing your fingers over places that shouldn't be touched in public, that fantasy is quietly burning in the background of his mind. It's not just about being in a public place, it's about the tension. The stolen moment, the idea that something secret is unfolding while the rest of the world carries on completely unaware. That contrast is what makes it so arousing. For a man who's constantly expected to maintain composure, to operate with control and restraint, the idea of being unraveled just a little when he's supposed to be his most buttoned up is deeply exciting. It's the psychological edge that makes the physical sensations even more potent. It could be as simple as slipping your hand onto his thigh while you're sitting next to each other at a social event, slowly moving upward, just enough to make his breath catch, but not enough to be obvious. Or maybe it's brushing past him at a party, letting your lips barely graze his neck, leaving him wondering if anyone saw. Maybe it's the way you lean in at dinner and, instead of sweet small talk, whisper something bold and explicit that only he hears. Those moments, as small as they are, create a private current of tension that only the two of you are in on. That shared secret that I know what you're thinking glance across the room builds anticipation better than any slow striptease ever could. What makes public teasing so powerful is the delayed gratification it creates. He's turned on, but he can't act on it, at least not right away. He has to sit with that growing heat, feel it build, hold it in, and for many men, not to hurt you. It stretches the desire, lets it simmer, makes the moment you finally get alone together 10 times more intense. That slow burn is a form of foreplay that happens hours before the bedroom is even in sight. But again, this isn't something most men feel comfortable asking for. It's not exactly dinner table conversation, and depending on how he was raised or what past partners have expected, he may have been taught to keep things neat, controlled, and respectful at all times. So when you take the lead, when you decide to playfully push the boundary without ever crossing into something disrespectful or obvious, you're not just turning him on, you're showing him that you understand his desire at a deeper level. You're giving him a permission slip to feel wild, to be off balance, to crave you with a kind of urgency that doesn't happen in routine intimacy. And the best part, you don't need to be loud or outrageous to do it. All it takes is presence, a look that lingers too long, a word that has double meaning, a hand that moves just slow enough to be deliberate. These little gestures in the right moment say, I see you, I know what you want, and I'm going to make you wait for it. That's the kind of tease that sticks in his memory for days, long after the night is over. Because, for him, being desired in secret, in public, without anyone else knowing, that's not just hot, it's electric. Most people assume men only need physical pleasure to feel satisfied in bed. But the truth is far more layered. What many won't admit, even to themselves, is how much they crave praise and verbal affirmation during intimacy. Sure, they enjoy your moans, your reactions, and the physical connection. But what really drives them wild is hearing, in real time, how much you want them, how good they make you feel, and how deeply you're enjoying every second with them. That kind of language, the raw, unfiltered affirmations, touches something inside them they rarely get to feel seen for. This isn't about ego stroking, it's about connection. Men, whether they show it or not, carry insecurities into the bedroom too. They wonder if they're satisfying you, if they're desired as much as they desire you, if they're doing it right. And because so many men are raised to suppress emotion and never show vulnerability, they won't directly ask, am I enough for you right now? But when you tell him without him asking that he's driving you crazy, that you love the way he touches you, or that you can't get enough of his body, that's when something unlocks in him. That's when he stops trying to perform and starts surrendering to the moment with you. It's the difference between being physically present and emotionally present. When you give him words that affirm not just his actions but the impact they're having on you, he stops feeling like he's guessing. He feels appreciated, desired, powerful, and that feeling, in turn, makes him want to give even more, be more attentive, more generous, more connected. It becomes a loop. Your praise fuels his passion, and his passion deepens your desire. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't take grand statements or poetic declarations. It's in the simplicity, whispering, I love the way you touch me right there, or breathing out, you feel so good inside me, has more effect than most people realize. Even just saying his name in a moment of pleasure can make him feel seen and connected to you in ways that silent moans alone can't. Your voice, your words, they turn intimacy into something far more personal, far more memorable. Sometimes, praise can also be about the emotional energy he brings into the moment. Saying something like, "I love how you take your time with me," or "I feel so safe with you right now," opens a whole new dimension. You're not just feeding his desire, you're affirming his presence, his attention, his intention. That builds trust. That makes him want to go even deeper with you, because he knows he's not just being wanted for what he can do, but for who he is in that intimate space. Of course, men won't always tell you they need this. They might act like they've got it all under control, like they don't need reassurance. But don't let the silence fool you. The man who seems the most confident is often the one who would melt the fastest under a few well-timed, honest words. Because no matter how tough or composed he appears, he wants to feel worshipped by the person he's giving himself to. He wants to know that, in your eyes, he's not just doing well, he's everything you want in that moment. So, next time you're together, don't hold back. Say what you're feeling, speak your desire. Show him that his presence, his effort, his energy, it matters. When you make him feel like a god in your words, you'll be shocked at how passionately he shows up for you in return. That's not flattery, that's connection at its most sensual and sincere. There's something incredibly magnetic about a woman who owns her pleasure, who doesn't wait to be given permission to enjoy herself, but instead steps fully into her own desire with confidence and clarity. What most men won't say, but deeply crave, is the experience of watching their partner take control of her own satisfaction. Not because they don't want to please her, they absolutely do, but because seeing her pleasure herself, either physically or verbally expressing what she wants, is one of the most arousing things a man can witness, and yet it's one of the things women are often most hesitant to do, especially early on in a connection. Here's the truth most men won't articulate. It's unbelievably hot to see a woman who knows what turns her on and isn't shy about showing it. Whether it's her touching herself in front of him, or simply guiding his hands and saying slower, or more pressure there, it signals something powerful. It says, "I'm not just here to please you, I'm here because I want to feel amazing too." That level of self-assuredness doesn't intimidate him. It excites him. It turns the experience from a performance into a shared journey where he doesn't have to guess what you need. He gets to witness you fully immersed in what you want. This is where many people miss an important point. Men don't just want to do things to you. They want to feel like they're part of something electric, something alive. Watching you touch yourself or respond to your own body is not just a visual experience, it's an emotional and psychological one. It shows him you're comfortable, safe, and open in his presence. It communicates a level of trust that words alone can't capture. And when you go there, when you stop waiting for him to make the first move or figure out the perfect rhythm, you give him permission to relax too. You let him know he's not carrying all the weight. This isn't about putting on a show. It's not about trying to be wild for the sake of impressing him. It's about authenticity. If you're enjoying yourself, really enjoying yourself, he can feel it. And nothing compares to the feeling of being with someone who is completely uninhibited in their pleasure. Even just hearing you vocalize what you're experiencing in the moment, saying, "That feels so good," or "Don't stop," gives him something to respond to. It creates rhythm, tension, and deeper intimacy. When a woman stops waiting and starts leading her pleasure, it also teaches him how to be a better lover. Because, let's be honest, no matter how much experience a man has, every body is different, and the only way he truly learns how to love your body is when you show him. That doesn't have to be clinical or awkward. It can be playful, it can be sexy, it can be something as simple as moving his hand where you want it or locking eyes while you guide him. That mutual participation turns the act into a dance instead of a one-sided performance. So many men are secretly hoping you'll take that step, not because they're passive, but because they want to see the real, raw version of you. The one who isn't afraid to take up space in the bedroom. The one who moans without apology, who explores herself without shame, who lets go of how she should act and embraces how she wants to feel. That's not just sexy, it's unforgettable, and it's in those moments that something shifts. Sex stops being a routine and becomes a playground, where two people aren't just touching bodies, they're exploring desire together. And when he sees you lead your own pleasure with boldness and joy, it gives him a kind of permission he didn't even know he needed, to be fully present, deeply connected, and wildly alive with you.